So first off, I just wanted to say thank y'all so much for being here and joining us. And leading us through this webinar on Salesforce reporting is the founder of Undaunted Consulting, someone who has spent years helping nonprofits collect, clean, and leverage their data. He is a Salesforce wizard, so you're in good hands. Without further ado, David Dunn.
Maddie, you flatter me. Thank you very much. High praise. I appreciate that. So yeah, thank you for coming to the webinar. This webinar is, we call it Salesforce Reporting for Organizations That Show Up. Right now, let me just introduce myself, although I think I know most of you. My name is David Dunn, and I am the principal of Undaunted Consulting, and we help nonprofits use technology to do more good in the world. I am also, I like to say I'm a Luddite at heart. I take a very utilitarian view of technology. I am not a tech advocate. In many ways, I resist tech actually in many ways, but I find that it has its use. The goal, the important part is to keep the human first, because really my belief is technology exists to increase the ability of people to do work that they value and have reason to value. The goal of technology in a nonprofit organization is to free up human capacity to focus more on the mission. As you can see from the third photo, some of my prepared technologies include chalk, actually. My background is in education. This is a photo of somebody took of me standing on a chair because I was running out of room on the board with organized chaos. Despite the slides, which are kind of necessary for this medium, I'm actually never been much of a PowerPoint guy. I believe learning happens best when it can go where students or where the learners are. So that's really what we're going to try to do. So let's talk through the plan. This webinar is geared toward organizations that provide direct service. So some kind of direct support to individuals. The use case that we have in mind is like an abortion fund, because that's who we do a lot of our work with, different abortion funds. But the principles and the steps that you're going to take are going to be widely applicable. We're going to start by zooming way out. The further you zoom out, the smaller Salesforce gets. So, when you see the whole, that's when you can begin to see when the parts, like where they fit in. The reason I want to start there is so that, Salesforce can be big and overwhelming, and we're going to just make it a little smaller. Then we're going to start to zoom back in, and I'll show you how a custom report gets put together. We'll do that in both slides and in your actual Salesforce environment. So you might want to go ahead and pull up Salesforce in your own organization if you have it. Ideally, you work in a sandbox, but we're just building reports here really. So you can do this in a production organization without doing damage. You might want to just, if we build a custom report type together, you might want to delete it when you're done, but no big deal. And then what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to transition into actually building some skills together. We're going to hopefully work together where you can follow along in your own orgs and kind of get practice doing on your own. So, this is kind of like say, show, do, right? I'm going to talk about some things. I'm going to show you how to do the things. Then we're going to do them together. We have blocked a whole hour for this. I don't think we're going to need it. Please ask your questions as you have them, but we're also going to allow some time at the end for folks to ask specific questions. So what to expect? First thing is expect to be challenged a little bit. Like I said, my background's in education, and the thing about education is you actually only learn if something is hard. It's sort of like physical exercise, right? Like if I can do this with my arms all day and my arms really aren't going to get stronger, I have to stress them out a little bit. So we're going to try to wear out your brains just a little bit. Also, ask questions. We already said that. You don't have to wait until the Q&A to ask a question. Often, somebody else has the same question you're thinking of. And then the final expectation is do protect your people. This webinar, as I said, is being recorded. So if you ask a question or talk about a situation, and I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir here because y'all know, privacy is vital. But I just want to go ahead and say that out loud as well, because whatever you say here is going to live forever. So just be mindful of that. Okay, so concepts, part one. We are going to start by zooming out. And I'm going to tell you right now, this may not seem immediately applicable, but I'm going to ask you to trust the process, because the goal here is not, I don't want to start just by showing you click this, click that, do that. That takes a lot of practice. Like, you got to do it over and over and over again for it to kind of drill in. And even though you don't quite understand what you're doing, if we can actually, though, start with some concepts, to start with something familiar, to understand something that's maybe a little less familiar, then you can build on those to have your own kind of internal capacity, right? Your own agency, so that you can begin to develop more of your own expertise. You don't have to know everything. We're actually going to do this by analogy, because the truth is, Salesforce is not as scary as it seems, even though this right here looks pretty damn scary. This is Salesforce. This is called an object schema. It's a visual representation of of how data is stored in Salesforce, which is pretty scary. I mean, look at all those boxes, right? Look at all those lines. What do all these symbols mean at the end? It's a mess. It looks like I made a big pot of spaghetti and then threw a bunch of index cards in and stirred it all around. Yikes. But what if we just look at one of them? This is a close-up of just one of those cards. And when we look at one of those cards, things start to look a little more normal. Zoom in here, right? We have an account name. We have the amount the patient is paying. We have the appointment date. We have an appointment type. We have a clinic. We have date, time, close. This is familiar. In fact, if we could just imagine this not as like a big scary object schema, but maybe more like index cards or like sheets of paper with lines on them, that's essentially all we're really looking at here. So this, yikes, big and scary. But at its core, I mean, this could basically be a list of grocery items you're picking up at the store, right? We just have a few of them, or a lot of them. Take a look at this. Now, is this scary, right? This might seem a little scary because you're not familiar with it, but goodness, this is just a spreadsheet. Maybe you're more comfortable with spreadsheets than others. Maybe you're not very comfortable, but most of us, when we see a spreadsheet, are not going to wet ourselves, right? We're not going to be freaking out when we see this. It's really just a spreadsheet. But let's zoom into the spreadsheet as well. What do we have here? We have a case number. We have a date, time opened. We have an account name. We have a case origin. We have an appointment type. We have those same things that we saw on that card, but now they're here. All that's happening in that big scary schema is you're taking that card and you're turning it sideways, and then every one of those is just becoming a header row in a spreadsheet. So Salesforce uses terms like fields and objects, and yeah, those are the terms. But if you strip everything down, Salesforce is just a bunch of spreadsheets. That's all it is. It is spreadsheets that have connections to other spreadsheets. But essentially, this scary thing right here, think about each one of these cards as just a spreadsheet in a Google Drive folder. That's basically it. They're just linked in different ways. And we'll talk more about that presently. So let's imagine we're dealing with a spreadsheet now. I'm going to take a step back from actually like what you probably do in your work. And let's think about a scenario where, let's say there's a friend of yours and you're a clever person. And so your friend comes to you advice because they run a nonprofit after-school tutoring program. And they say to you, hey, so I have a problem. I wonder what you think about this. This is my list of participants, right? This is who I'm supposed to be tracking. But I just had a funder tell me that they need to see families and not just like individuals. So how how do I like know who the families are? One way you might look at it is you can see like last names. Okay, so this person is a Brooks and this person is a Brooks. So, okay, they're probably in the same family. I think I saw there's a Kowalski and then there's another Kowalski. By the way, this is all fake data. Anything you see here is fake data. There's a Grant somewhere. I think I saw another Grant. Yeah, there's a couple of Grants. So I could use that and kind of figure out who lives in the same household, who belongs to the same family, but it's not going to be very accurate because there are step siblings. There are people who have the same last name, but they're not the same family. They're different. You don't have that kind of accuracy. But what if you did this? What if you had a street address? Now, all of a sudden, you can start saying, oh, I can use this address to know who belongs to the same family. Because if we had a full address, I didn't put a full address here for obvious reasons. It was just too much. But if you have a full address, I don't think you're going to find any two full addresses in the United States that are the same, right? That would be bad. That would be a problem. Mail would go to the wrong place. These addresses here, I can look at them and say, okay, 330 Maple Drive, 330 Maple Drive. Oh, look, 330 Maple Drive. Oh, goodness, Amara and Elijah, yeah, they're siblings, but Carmen is probably a step sibling, possibly, maybe a foster child in the family, maybe, yeah, I don't know, cousin who's just living with them for a bit. Who knows? But the fact is they belong in the same household. And so I can use this unique bit of information right here, this unique identifier, to tell me how things should be grouped together. Zoom out from there. Now, if you had to do this by hand, what you probably do is like sort and count. Okay, there we go. Right, so you would maybe open up a new tab and then you copy all of the unique addresses, and then you go over here and you start, sort by street address, and then you'd say 1, 2, 3 over here. Let's see, Maple Drive, where'd Maple Drive go? 1, 2, 3, 3 goes right there. And so it would be a manual process of back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. If you know how to do a pivot table, it would be less manual, but it's still something you do by hand, and it's something you have to do every single time you need to get that information. But if you built this report in Salesforce, it is run and it is done. You might have an object on the left called households. You might have an object on the right called participants. And then we're not using street address as a unique identifier, but there is a unique identifier that allows Salesforce to know how things should be grouped together. Like this. So this screenshot shows us 3 objects from Salesforce. This is the dev org that we built, but we have here our case, right? We can think of our case like our household, not in the sense that like it's a place where people live, but it is one thing, right, that has many things, right? It has one case, and then there are types of support that you're providing. It might be procedural support, it might be volunteer support, it might be practical support, but one case might have like different line items essentially that have some kind of monetary value associated with them, and then Salesforce knows like, okay, here's the case, and then everything that's associated with this case, this all groups together. On the right side, you might have something called a budget, and that budget is associated with support that you provide. And what these lines do is these lines are just showing how Salesforce is connecting those spreadsheets. So if you're in a support page and you can select a budget that matches over there, Salesforce can match the support to the budget and roll up and provide you with information that is specific to that. So a report in Salesforce, what it can do is if you're doing a regular spreadsheet, you have to like do everything by hand every time uniquely. In a Salesforce can travel across these connections and pull information from one spreadsheet into another spreadsheet. Some of you who use Airtable, maybe you might be familiar with this. You can have these lookups that pull information from one Airtable table to another completely different Airtable table. So, right, let's think about case, support, and budget, right? You could show, if these things are connected, you could show the number of support records per case, or you could show the amount of support per case, or you could show the number of cases per budget, or the average amount per budget. You're able to combine these two things. You can start in budget, and then you can look over in the case and say, let me count this, and Salesforce can do that without you having to count it the way you would in a spreadsheet. You could even get really complicated, some really complex things like, the total amount of support per budget grouped by case month. So you have this, ability to do a nice little line chart. That may be a bit overwhelming, or it may feel a bit overwhelming, and sometimes reports can be complicated. But when you've got enough practice at it, a report can be built in 10 minutes or less. And then once you build it, you don't really have to build it again if you need the same information. You might just have to change a few filters, make a few modifications, but it's there. It is done. It is ready for you every single time. So let's see what this looks like actually in Salesforce. And I'm going to show you how to build a custom report type. And that's not something you will probably, you may do a lot right now, but what it can help is take the principles we've talked about and actually show you how they're applied in Salesforce. I'm going to start by showing you some screenshots. And then from there, we're going to transition to an actual sandbox environment. So if you have created reports in Salesforce, you have probably seen something like this, right? You go new report, and then you see a list of categories to select, and then, some reports that are available in there. You have this search field that you can use and type in something you're looking for. We also have this other category right there called, standard, custom. And for the most part, when you have an object / spreadsheet in Salesforce, Salesforce knows you're going to build a report out of it. There are times when you might want to do a custom report. That will actually be fairly rare, but it can happen. But again, we're doing this so you can kind of see how the structure gets put into place. So when you build a custom report type, the first thing you'll notice right here is you're selecting your primary object. So you can think of that as the main spreadsheet. That is where you're standing. And in this case, we have this thing called monthly budget. So that's where we're going to be standing when we start to look at things. And then we have our second object, which is our support. Whenever there are lines connecting things in Salesforce, remember the index card spaghetti? Whenever there are those lines, you can pull that information together. So in this case, we have monthly budget. I'm standing a monthly budget, but I can look over in support and see 1, 2, 3, 4. I can count the things that are connected by that unique identifier. I can also choose which sets of records to gather. So right now, in this case, we are telling Salesforce to just select the intersection of those two records. Basically, show us support records that are tied to budgets. Don't show us support records that aren't tied to budgets. That means in this custom report type, if a support record does not have a budget, that support record will not show up. That can be useful if, for instance, let's say I have some types of support that most of the types of support I have are monetary. They have money associated with them, so they're going to have a budget. Some of them, though, don't, right? Some of them is just volunteers doing stuff. So I could run a report on budgets and support, and I would see like, okay, here's all the money, and then here are the ones that are just associated with volunteers and they don't actually have money. Or I could use that report to exclude the volunteers and just do the ones that have money. Or I could expand it and show support records whether or not they have a budget. And what that would tell me is maybe if I'm trying to balance the books at the end of the month, I can see, oh, who's not tied this to a budget yet, and I could use that report to streamline some data entry, data cleanup processes I need. After that, you have the ability to choose which fields, and we'll do this together in a few moments, but I can choose which fields I want to be available to select. I can also make it so that certain fields always show up by default. I can even change the field label to something specific that's, not the standard Salesforce label. I could change this from record type to just type if I needed to, or support type if I needed to. I can access fields that are available that are not in the two objects I selected. So I have monthly budget and I have support, but I also have clinic. Now, if we go back to here, clinic was not an option I selected, but it is available because I have it. Where are we? Where is it? I have it over here. This is a lookup field. You're not necessarily gonna know that, but I have clinic here. It exists in one place, so I can use lookup fields to actually walk across even more reports and pull information together. So I can take all these noodly spaghetti index cards and put a lot of kind of complex information on a single report in a way that makes that presents it all pretty neatly. Okay. So now we are going to build some reports together. And at this point, I'm going to switch my window. Okay. This is our developer org where we have set up a package that we have where we just some very basic case management stuff with some support records and some budget stuff. It is all, I want to underscore again, it is all fake data. None of this is real. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to show you our reports. Actually, before we do that, let me show you how to create a custom report type. Again, if you are in your own environment, I encourage you to follow along. So to create a custom report type, I'm actually going to go over here to the settings or to setup. I'm just going to click setup. And it is now going to open up my new tab to Salesforce setup. I'm going to go to quick find and I'm going to type report. And I can see different report options that show up here. I'm going to select report types. And now we can see the custom report types that have been built. This is by auto processes, something Salesforce set up when we first spun up this instance. Other reports that we have created. So the most recent one I created is monthly budget with support, which is I think where those screenshots came from. So let me create another one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll up here. And we're going to select new custom report type. Let's see. We'll do cases with support. So I'm going to select my primary object. I'm going to type in case. And there it is. And then for the display, this is what I'm going to name the custom report type. I'm going to name it cases with support. You will be able to see, you should be able to build actual reports in a moment. So little hint, when I build something that, there are two words I could use here. There's with and there's and. I tend to use with if I'm going to ask it to show me only cases with support records. I will use and if I want it to show me all cases, whether or not they have support records. So we're going to say cases that have support records. The description is a required field. I'm going to sort in the category. This is called customer support reports. That's where Salesforce tends to think of cases. It's going to default to in development. We're just going to select deployed. And next. All right, here's cases, my primary object. And now, let me go previous actually. So cases, primary object. And let's type in support. Okay, and right here we can say every A record must have at least one related B record. So it's only going to show me these things, only the cases that have support. If I wanted to see cases that that may or may not have support, I would select here. And as you can see, it changes that Venn diagram. I could relate another object if I wanted to. My options there are going to be more limited, but this would be activities. So like, look at that. So like tasks and call logs that are related to support, that are related to cases. We don't need that. Let's not do that. Okay. I'm going to hit save. And now I'm going to edit my layout if I'd like to do that. I would like to edit my layout. Here we go. So all it's going to show me right now, this right here is telling me my case number is going to be default. That means it's going to show up by default. Support name is going to show up by default. Let's go ahead and use account name, and we're going to just change this to clinic. And that's only affecting the name. And let's see, what do we got here? Procedural support. Procedural support notes. We'll just call that support. No, they're all notes. Support status, because there's also a case status. So we'll do support status there. And then we'll do case status there. And I could also move these things around a little bit. If I wanted to, I could delete some things that we don't need, like we don't need product or asset, entitlement name, business hours. We do need web name, type, status. Yeah, so there are things I don't need, things I do need, and I can play around with that to make building my report next a little bit easier. And this is actually a good use case for when you might want to just use a custom report type, even if a standard report type exists. If you want to make things easier for somebody who may not be as knowledgeable in Salesforce to build reports, you could actually just surface the fields that you know they'll need, and you can name them certain things that will be easier for them to understand what's going on. I thought I saved that one. Yeah, save that. Okay. Let's go ahead and save this. Actually, let me take a quick look at the lookup fields. So I clicked on that, and I can see here that these are the lookup fields that are available to me. We'll actually not go with any. Well, yeah, let's do this. I could, if I wanted to, show some billing information about the clinic as well. I can pull that in there. Did I do that? Apply. There it is. And I'm going to create a new section, and I'm going to just call that, what is it? Clinic. Right. And now, yeah, see, I already have one in there. Let's go here. And I have now created this sucker right here. I'm going to close it. Let me go ahead and do a quick modification to the name, because otherwise I might have a hard time finding it, since there is a standard report named that. Okay. So now I'm going to build a new report. And it's going to always default to the report types that I've recently used. I'm going to go ahead and just hit all. And let's type in cases with, here we go, cases with support 2, which is the one that I made, the custom one. I'm going to click on that. And over here, you can actually see the description I have, and then what reports already exist, which is super duper handy, because sometimes, you know how if you're in Salesforce, sometimes you'll like build a report and then later realize that somebody already built that report before you. This is a nice little thing. I've done that before. I've been like, oh, wait, oh, good job, 2023, David. You actually already made this. So don't have to remake the wheel. And as we can see now, yeah, Salesforce is pushing its AI. So now you have other simpler ways actually to get some cool tools, but that's not what this is about. So right now we can see that I have case numbers, I have clinics, and I have support names. Those are the ones that we set to show up by default. it is going to default to showing me my cases, which means cases I own. Your organization may or may not use case or record ownership models, so this may not be relevant. Well, it is relevant insofar as if you use an ownership model, you can lock down other people's ability to see information, to see certain records. So if I were to run this report, and let's say I might only be able to have access to my cases, I couldn't see report data from somebody else's cases. In Salesforce, if you create a case, you're the default owner. So we probably want to make that all cases. If you have a process where people might submit a case online and you put that into a queue, which is like a shared case inbox, you can select your queue and do things like that. But we'll just make this all cases for now. I'm going to hit apply. Here we go. It is going to preview. It is going to show me a preview of 50 cases. That's it. And let me go ahead and just save and run this for now. I would recommend, if you are following along at home, to save it into your private reports. That way you don't clutter up other people's stuff. I'm just going to save that there. All right, so here we go. I have 678 total cases, 678 total cases in here. And this is just a straight on spreadsheet, right? It's just, look at that, just one row after another row after another row. It's not doing anything fancy, even though it is pulling case numbers here and support names here, right? You can see that these 4 case numbers, they're the same. And this is, so that means this is actually just one case. And then there are 3 support records. Why is it showing the same case 3 times? Well, because I am combining that information, combining the data. And so I'm saying, Salesforce, show me the support records. And so if I say, show me the support records, it's going to show me every support record. And it's just going to say, hey, this belongs to case number this. Oh, and this one also belongs to case number this. What if I want to simplify it? Well, let's go back to edit. And this is where, okay, I got it. Stop showing me the Einstein stuff. This is where I can start doing some really cool things. This is where I can start grouping. I'm going to take my case number and just plop it up there. Refresh. Look at that. Now I have, right, all the different support records grouped together. So if I save and run this, there we go. Still a little challenging to read, especially if I just want like a count of cases. So what I can do, or count of support records per case, I don't want to have to go down through all of these. That's a bit of a pain. So little fun, I can just click detail rows and make that go away. And now I have just a plain old record count, which, if you recall from the earlier slide deck where we had the household spreadsheet over here and we had the participant spreadsheet over here, this is what we're getting. We're getting the household spreadsheet right here, except in this case, it's case numbers and record counts. Whoops, wrong. I can't edit fields if I need to. Why can't I not edit it? All right, we'll figure it out. All right, report builder. So let's go ahead and add some more information. How about we're going to add type. So let's do support type, abortion, food, meals, transportation, and let's do amount. Okay, this is the amount the patient is paying for the case. That's not what we're looking for. We're actually looking for the amount supplied for the support. So amount applied. So here we go. Now Salesforce is automatically saying, oh, okay, you want amount applied. You probably want a total there. You want a summary. So I'm going to just add I'm going to add these things together because I'm pretty sure that's what you want. And indeed it is. So if I save and run this again, now I have 678 records. I have total amount applied. I can do my detail rows. And look at that. Some of them out applied. I can do other things too. If I want to, I can take amount applied and tell it, don't just give me the sum, give me the average. What's the average amount of support per case? Right? Shows my summary, or my sum and my average there. And if I remove the detailed rows, I get these nice columns. Average amount applied. Average amount of support per case is $145.41. I'm looking at our time and I can get carried away with showing how these cool things work. Let me show one more thing. I can add more than one group. I can do record type. So right now, let me just remove amount applied for a moment. Right now, I have my practical support, my procedural support grouped together like this, right? So I can see, 3 practical support records for this case, 1 procedural support record for the case. I can do it. I can get this as well. So practical procedural, and subtotal. There are ways to make this data look a little bit easier to read. We could, for instance, take record type. Sometimes it's persnickety. Oh, come on, do it. There we go. I can get this and do a kind of cross-tab report. So now I can see 2, 3, 0, 1, right? I can get this in more of a neat line that I can read and get that total. So 479 practical support records, 199 procedural support records. I can add a fun little chart, right? In this one by case, I go over here to my chart controls, and I know I'm hurrying right now. And this is now showing me my practical support and my procedural support as bar charts. Whoops. I go back here and I can do a donut chart. So I can see percentages. And actually, I didn't need to go to edit. I can also, I could slice this by record, by case number, but that's not what we want to do. I can show percentages. I can show values. Do lots of options there. Oh, there's one more thing I wanted to show, and then I do want to make sure we have time for questions. The other thing that people don't always know that they can do, let me just move that over there, is so I can group by date time closed. Let's remove that chart. I don't need that right now. So here's what I have. Actually, let me do date time opened. All right. So right now, because I'm grouping this now by date, I can build a chart that shows fluctuations per date. Right now, this is showing me by case number, which is not quite what I want. So I'm going to change the x-axis to date time opened. There we go. Now, this is also kind of messy. Look at that, that's a mess. So I'm actually going to do one more thing. I'm going to go back to my edit. I'm going to select this. You can do a lot. If you're not sure what to do in Salesforce reports, select the caret and see what happens, or Look at that. I can do things. Let me go here to datetime opened. And I have this fun thing where I can say group date by, how about calendar month? Now it's only going to show me a couple months because it's showing me a limited number of records. But there we go. Now it's showing me from September 2021 through March of 2025. I can hover, I can see my information, and if I wanted to, on a report, I can click a data point, and now it's going to filter what I'm seeing here. Now it's just showing me October 2023. If I click that, now it's just going to show me April 2024. So again, these reports, once I set this thing up, I can use it to show me like the bits of data that I need, and I don't have to keep rebuilding or remaking the wheel over and over and over again. All right, I can be a big nerd when it comes to reporting. So at this point, I'm going to open it up for some Q&A. There are a lot of things I've shown you. I've tried to cover things that are like most common use cases, recognizing that you have the ability to go back and look at the YouTube again, but there are also maybe less common use cases you might have, or you might need to be shown how to do something again. So that's what we can do for this next 8 minutes that we have. Is there a way to export the graphs? Honestly, I forget. Let me do an export here. So I'm going to export a formatted report. I usually export details only, but let's do a formatted report. And I don't think it's going to give you the charts, but I'm taking a look at this in a window you can't see. Oh, no. What you could do, though, let me share my screen. So this is my formatted report. So as you can see, it's showing the thing I clicked on, February 2025. It's showing my case numbers. It's showing my clinic. I could also just sort by clinic too. Support name, type. What you could honestly do, if it were me, most nonprofits in the United States tend to be on Google Workspace. If you have Google Workspace, you have some access to Gemini, Google for Nonprofits. Double check your privacy settings, but Gemini, if you're paying for it, which you are, it doesn't learn from your data. So honestly, I would just feed this into Gemini and say, make some cool charts off of this information, and it'll get that for you in a pretty quick and easy way. This is also a nice, easy way, though, if you need to present something to somebody. This looks cool. That was a good question. Thank you. All right, kids, then I'm going to show you one other thing, if I can find my window. So let's forget datetime opened. Let's just go with case number and record type. And I may get this wrong because this part is tricky. And oh, it still kept my filters, so I'm going to just get rid of that and get rid of that. Oh, and it's showing me date time close for the fiscal quarter. I should have clarified that. Yeah, it's going to default to that. So probably more cases if I do all time. There we go. Okay. So let me save this. You do have the ability to create these formulas. Let me just do a very simple row level formula. And for a row level formula, I've honestly not used the Einstein stuff because AI kind of annoys me. Sorry, like I said, Luddite. But I could do a very simple formula where, let's try Einstein together. Let's see what happens. Okay. Create a formula that returns the year the case was opened as a text value. Let's see what it does, if it does it right. Yep, it did it right. So I'm going to go case open year. Cool. Apply and refresh. And so what I could do is I have case open year. If I wanted, I could move the case open year there. I need to remove record type now because it only allows you 3 group rows. And then I can go, what did I say? Open date time opened. And let's change that to group date by month again. Save. And I'm going to select two x-axes because I can do that because I have more than one group. There we go. This may not turn out quite the way I want it to. Oh, yeah, didn't turn out quite the way I wanted it to. What I was trying to get was a bunch of different little line charts, but I think I'm probably doing something wrong. Is it, do I have it backwards? Yeah, there we go. Okay. Yeah, so I can get something like that as well if I'm grouping by my year. So I use a formula to group by year, to group by date time opened, right? And so I get this fun little comparison. I can also go into my filter, and right now it's date time closed. If I wanted to, I can make it date time opened and previous 2 fiscal years and apply. And now I have that. And I can do that without actually having to edit the report, which is where I said, you don't have to remake the wheel every single time. Once you set it up, you can often just run it and run it and run it again. We are at time. So thank you very much for your participation and attendance and for your good questions. Hope you learned something.